Eagles. Eagles.
What is up, everybody? What's up? Welcome to the first collaboration between the Legal Hands to the Face show and JAKIB Sports. This is the first time our show is being live streamed here on the JAKIB Sports Network. For those of you who know me already, welcome to JAKIB Sports. For those of you who don't, I am Bill Colarulo. I'm going to be coming to you guys every Monday night here live on the JAKIB Sports Network at 6:30. All I do is talk Eagles, so we're going to be breaking down all things Philadelphia Eagles. In addition to having this live show on Monday nights, I also post daily content to all our social media channels, so be sure to check out Legal Hands to the Face on all your favorite social media platforms. The Eagles are 1-0, and the joy and excitement stops there. I've been hearing from a lot of fans all day. It's only week one. Let's not get too frustrated. A win is a win. I agree with all of it. It is not easy to win in the NFL. Nick Sirianni said it after the game. Jalen Hurts said it after the game. But just like these coaches aren't going to just say, hey, it was week one. We're not going to say as fans, it was just week one, because there was a lot that needs to be cleaned up. We are not the Detroit Lions just hoping to have a good season this year and build off of last year. We are a Super Bowl contender, and we did not look like a Super Bowl contender yesterday in New England. And the reason I am frustrated is not only what happened in the game, but what happened all summer and training camp leading up to this game. We have been pounding on the table since they let TJ Edwards walk. Since they let Kazir White walk, I have been saying it all summer long. They needed to do something at the linebacker position. The only move they make in the offseason is bringing in Nicholas Morrow. We knew they didn't have confidence in Nicholas Morrow when they signed him to a one-year deal with no guaranteed money. And then they showed us they didn't have confidence in Nicholas Morrow when they brought on Myles Jack and Zach Cunningham about a month ago. And those guys, there's a reason they were still available. And what happens with Myles Jack? He retires a week after they bring him in. So now we go into this game. They cut Nicholas Morrow. We put all of our hopes at that linebacker position on the Kobe Dean, a guy who's played 34 snaps in the NFL. 34 snaps. He makes it through a half of football, and now he is out multiple weeks with a foot injury. And you saw why Zach Cunningham was still available that late into this offseason. He didn't play horrible, but he is not going to be a guy that can carry this defense. And Bill O'Brien and Bill Belichick are too good of coaches. You saw what did they exploit on Sunday. They took advantage of the middle of the field. They went right after our linebackers, right after our safeties, another position that we've been screaming about all summer long. Our starting safety next to Reed Blankenship was Justin Evans. Very promising coming out of college a few years ago. Tampa takes him in the second round, but he's had the injury bug, was out of football in 2021, played up and down last year for the New Orleans Saints, and he is starting on this Super Bowl contending Philadelphia Eagles team. And I see you guys in the chat. I appreciate you all being here. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Feel free to engage. I see Eagles fan Kylie Caperton saying she's not happy with the offense. Either am I, and we are going to get there. We are going to get there. But I am frustrated with the personnel going into this season when all of us were calling for that linebacker position and that safety position to be better before week one. It was sloppy. I'm happy. Not only do they win on the road, not only do they beat the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick, they do go to 1-0, and we're coming back home Thursday against Minnesota. We're going to break that down later in the show. We also have a special guest coming on later in the show, Dr. Chris Radcliffe. This guy, Harvard-trained, Duke Medical School, orthopedic surgeon, used to work for the Philadelphia Eagles. I want to talk to him about how long is Nakobe Dean out? Because what do the Philadelphia Eagles have to do today? They have to sign their third veteran linebacker in the last month in hopes that he can fill the position. I'm assuming they're going to bring Nicholas Morrow off the practice squad, and he's going to play on Thursday night. But the Eagles signed Rashaan Evans, 27 years old. He's 6'2", 232, was a first-round pick in 2018 of the Tennessee Titans. He went to Alabama, bringing another Alabama player. The Titans declined his fifth-year option last year. He signed a one-year deal with the Atlanta Falcons. He did start all 17 games. He played over 560 snaps, so he has experience, had a ton of tackles for that Falcons team, but that was a bad Falcons team. Doesn't get brought on any team this year. He was on the Tennessee Titans practice squad, and the Eagles were able to sign him away. So we will see. Hey, Barbara Carroll, thanks for tuning in. I've seen you. If you guys follow JAKIB Sports, if you're subscribed to JAKIB Sports, I've been co-hosting some shows, Birds 365, Sports Take. I've been on with Farzy, and Barbara Carroll's always there. So what's up, Barbara? But that's one thing that frustrated me was the personnel. But the other thing that was frustrating was the decision not to play these starters in the preseason. And if you listen to Nick Sirianni post-game, he admitted it. I got to give him credit. He admitted it after the game that he is going to rethink that next offseason because the team looked rusty. Not only did the team look rusty, but our star quarterback, and let me get this out of the way, I am a huge Jalen Hurts fan. I have been high on Jalen Hurts since he came into this league, but he did not look good last night. He did not look like the MVP caliber quarterback that I know that he is. He was clearly rusty. Now, I understand the reason they're not playing him in the preseason, the reason they're not playing these other starters in the preseason, is because they want to keep him healthy. But as coaches, as Nick Sirianni, the head coach of this team, you have to have your finger on the pulse. You have to know how your team is. And are they ready? They were not ready. This team needed to play at least a few series in the preseason. They didn't do it, and it showed yesterday. Now, they escaped with the win. Thank God they escaped with that win. But Jalen Hurts did not look good. I went back and watched the game again today, and as bad as the play calling was, which we'll get into in a second, Jalen Hurts was missing open receivers. He was making the wrong reads. That was clearly rust. There was a play in the second quarter. It was 3rd and 3 from midfield. They called a run-pass option. Dallas Goedert's at the top of the screen. Jalen Hurts is supposed to read the defensive end to see if he's going to crash down. If he does, Jalen Hurts pulls it. He has the opportunity to run it outside or throw the ball to Dallas Goedert. Jalen Hurts, being rusty, he made the decision before the ball was even snapped that he was going to give it to Kenny Gainwell, because if you watch the replay, second quarter, 3rd and 3 from the 50, the entire left side of the New England Patriots defense crashes down on Kenny Gainwell. If Jalen Hurts pulls that ball, Dallas Goedert was wide open. In fact, at the end of the play, Goedert is jumping up and down because he was so wide open, he would have walked 50 yards for a touchdown. But that's what was missing yesterday. Jalen Hurts' ability to read defenses, something that he had gotten so good at last year, being able to run that read option, being able to read the defenses. He couldn't do it yesterday. And look, I don't want to take anything away from Bill Belichick. He's one of the best coaches in the NFL, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And what they ran yesterday, it's got me concerned that other teams are going to try to replicate it. They had a very soft zone. They kept all the receivers in front of them. They really didn't come and attack Jalen Hurts. They kind of sat back at the snap of the ball and read what he was going to do and made it very, very difficult. The Eagles were able to win this game because of the turnover battle. You look at NFL games, turnovers is what's going to dictate most games. And thankfully, the defense did show up when they had to. Big play Slay with a pick six. Great return by Darius Slay. And then my man, Jordan Davis, I have been saying it all summer long that I was ecstatic to see a healthy year for Jordan Davis this year. I think that lower leg injury last year on a big guy like Jordan Davis really affected him all season long. This is going to be a great season for Jordan Davis. I think he's motivated by the addition of Jalen Carter. And let's talk about some positives here. The interior of that Philadelphia Eagles defensive line with Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox and Milton Williams, they look like they are absolutely stacked, and we are not going to miss Javon Hargrave at all on that interior. They did a great job against Ezekiel Elliott, Ramondre Stevenson, and that New England Patriots running game, but we'll talk about that as well. And then John DaVinci, spot on. Jake Elliott, another positive in this game. Thank God we have Jake Elliott. I mean, we almost take it for granted what that guy's able to do. He did miss that extra point. It was a bad hold by Sippis, but 4 for 4 on field goals, over 50 yards. It was the reason they won this game is you have a field goal kicker like Jake Elliott. If anybody's a golfer out there too, Jake Elliott is a stud golfer. Doesn't surprise me because he's so damn good with kicking the ball, similar motion, but that guy is a stud golfer as well. But thank God we have him. But I'm going to get into it. I see some questions in there. Am I going to be on here every day? I will be here every Monday. But if you like what you're hearing, I post daily content to our social media channels. You can check us out on Instagram, TikTok, here on YouTube or Facebook, Twitter, Legal Hands to the Face. Check us out everywhere. We are live streaming right now, not only on the JAKIB Sports Network on YouTube, we're also on Legal Hands to the Face on Facebook. So wherever you guys are listening, I appreciate the support. Share, like, the more Eagles fans we could reach, the better. But I want to get into, outside of some of the personnel decisions in the offseason, outside of some of the coaching decisions in the offseason with regard to playing your players in the preseason, I want to talk about something that really pissed me off yesterday with this coaching staff, and that was the special teams. And I'm not even talking about the play of the special teams. We can talk about the fact that they finished bottom 3 in kick returns against last year, bottom 2 in net punting yards last year, and they still brought back Michael Clay as the special teams coordinator. But what I'm talking about is having to burn 2 timeouts on special teams because you don't have the correct personnel on the field. That is unacceptable. If you've played high school football, college football, and we're talking about the NFL here, even in high school, on third down, not fourth down, on third down, they yell on the sidelines, punt team ready, field goal team ready. Everybody comes over to that coach and they count all 11 guys and they make sure they have the correct personnel on third down so that when fourth down comes, they run out onto the field and you don't have to burn a timeout. And Michael Clay and that special teams unit had to burn 2 timeouts. Eagles get away with it. But when you're going to be playing better teams in this league, and we have aspirations of winning a Super Bowl, you cannot be burning timeouts early in the game because you simply can't get the right personnel on a special teams. That was frustrating to me. And then let's also look at that game plan on offense. I know we lose Shane Steichen. He was a great play caller. You saw it all last season. One of the best things about Shane Steichen was if Jalen Hurts was struggling early, he was able to call plays to get Jalen Hurts in a rhythm. He was able to call short passes, get Jalen Hurts going in the game. You saw absolutely no rhythm at all in yesterday's play calling. Now, it's very difficult to say how much of that was Brian Johnson and how much of that was simply Jalen Hurts wasn't running the plays properly, because we did see him miss a lot of open receivers and a lot of bad reads. But I just didn't like the game plan. You come out and you give the ball to Kenny Gainwell 8 times on the first drive. All offseason, when they let Miles Sanders walk, we were ecstatic. They bring in DeAndre Swift. This is a guy that was going to add a whole other element to this offense, the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. The entire Eagles backfield last year had 48 catches. DeAndre Swift himself had 48 catches in Detroit. And we saw it week 1 last year against the Eagles, how talented he could be with the ball in his hands. So what did the Eagles do on a sloppy field? When short passing game is the way to go, they give DeAndre Swift 2 touches. He gets 1 carry and 1 pass reception. He only played 19 snaps yesterday. 19 snaps for your big free agent, or excuse me, he wasn't a free agent. They made a draft day trade to get him from Detroit, and he gets 19 snaps. I just didn't understand the game plan. You also don't dress Rashad Penny. Now, I was called crazy all offseason because I was saying I thought that there was a chance that Trey Sermon could have beaten out Rashad Penny for that fourth running back spot. Oh, you're crazy. You're crazy. Well, if you're not even going to dress Rashad Penny, how much confidence do the Eagles have in him? And the reason why I don't like not having Rashad Penny or Trey Sermon in the game, what's up, Game Time Flip, is because you have no big running back. You went into this game under sloppy conditions, on the road, week one, knowing that your quarterback was going to be rusty, hasn't played in 7 months in a real game. 7 months. And you don't dress a guy that can run between the tackles. You have Kenny Gainwell, small running back. Boston Scott, tiny running back. DeAndre Swift, small running back. You have to get a big running back. If it's not Rashad Penny and you're not going to dress him every week, well then why'd you let Trey Sermon go? Bring somebody in here who's able to run the football between the tackles. Look, Kenny Gainwell is a good running back. I have a lot of confidence that Kenny Gainwell is going to be a good, solid running back for this team. But you saw it last night. He does not have that Miles Sanders ability to hit a home run every time he touches the ball. Miles Sanders, say what you will, whether you were a fan of his or not, when the guy touched the ball at any given time, he could take it to the house. He averaged 4.9 yards a carry last year. The Eagles yesterday, 3.9 yards rushing. Now, that's not all on Kenny Gainwell. The offensive line yesterday, that is supposed to be one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And it's not supposed to be. It is one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. You have 2 future Hall of Famers, Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson. You brought back Jordan Mailata. You brought back Pro Bowler Landon Dickerson. And from day one, Cam Jurgens, who replaced Isaac Sayamala, has been your right guard. There was no battle in training camp. They went into this game with Cam Jurgens as your starter all summer. That offensive line did not look good. That offensive line did not look good. Not only running the ball, but in pass protection. Jalen Hurts was under duress pretty much the whole game. I saw a stat today that I had to double check to make sure it was accurate. Lane Johnson gave up 6 quarterback pressures against the New England Patriots. 6 quarterback pressures. That is not like Lane Johnson. And Jordan Mailata, 4 quarterback pressures. Now, Nick Sirianni was asked after the game if he was happy with the way Cam Jurgens played. He said that he was. And I thought Cam Jurgens played okay. I don't think he was the problem. The Philadelphia Eagles just couldn't block on the outside. Now, that New England Patriots defense, they are a good defense. But when your offensive line's not playing well, you can't establish the run. You have a quarterback who is clearly rusty and has no ability to read the defenses and make the right decisions. It's going to be a long day. And that's why it would have been nice to maybe have a big running back that you could at least try to pick up some yardage inside, and they just couldn't do it. And that's not where the questionable decisions stop on this coaching staff. And I want to get into some of the in-game decisions that Nick Sirianni made coming out of the break. But we're going to take our first break. We're going to be with you guys tonight all the way up until game time, Monday Night Football tonight, big game, Buffalo, New York Jets. So we will see how that all goes. But I'll be with you guys until 8 p.m. So stay tuned. Be sure to like, follow, share. Let's get some Eagles fans here. And feel free to engage in the comments. I'll be connecting with you guys. But we're going to take our first break now, and I'll catch you on the other side.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
EAGLES, Eagles.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. I had to calm myself down a little bit on the break because let me get this straight, though. I am happy that the Eagles are 1-0. I am very happy that the Eagles are 1-0. It's just that game yesterday was so frustrating on so many levels. It felt like a loss. You know, we were watching the game down at the Ocean Casino where JAKIB Sports, we do our pregame, halftime, and postgame show. Seth Joyner, Derek Gunn, Mark Farzetta, Mike Missinelli. And we were all screaming at the television in the green room because of some of the questionable decisions that this team was making. And I see Shane Trimble in the comments talking about Brian Johnson. I agree. And I said it in the first segment. Brian Johnson's play calling, I was not happy with in this game. Now, look, it's the first time he has ever called plays in the NFL. We expected some growing pains with Brian Johnson. But what I didn't expect was Jalen Hurts being as rusty as he was in this game. And it's hard to tell, would we be saying the same things about Brian Johnson today if Jalen Hurts didn't miss a couple of these open receivers? If Jalen Hurts didn't make the wrong read on some of these plays. And I'm one of the biggest Jalen Hurts fans going, but I try to be as objective as I can be. And when he doesn't play well, I'm going to call him out for not playing well. Jalen Hurts had a really bad game. And I didn't realize how bad he played until I went and watched the game a second time today. And it was frustrating. And you look at that offense, first drive of the game, they go 14 plays, 56 yards. The next 6 drives, they only had 17 plays and 42 yards. 6 drives, 17 plays, 42 yards. It was the first time that Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles had ever gone 5 straight drives without a first down. First time ever for Jalen Hurts as a starter, even going back to 2 years ago. So, again, I chalk that up to Nick Sirianni has to have his finger on the pulse of this team. He has to know that this team needed to play in the preseason. Maybe there's time. Maybe next year they won't have to play in the preseason. But it's your job as the head coach of this team to know when you're watching them in practice, when you're seeing them in the joint practices, hey, do they need real live reps? And the chances, they probably do. They probably do. And you look at Jalen Hurts. I talked about some questionable decisions, and I'm going to get into those in a second. But one of the biggest questionable decisions, end of the game, fourth quarter, they call a design run with 3:35 left, Jalen Hurts up the middle. He takes a big hit and fumbles the ball. Unacceptable. Jalen Hurts, you got to hold on to that ball. But that was probably the first time that he has been fully tackled in 7 months. Think about that. So in the biggest moment of the game, 3:30 left, trying to run out the clock, you're putting the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands. The guy hasn't been hit in 7 months because you refused to let him play in the preseason. I don't like that. I think that's a bad coaching decision. And let's look at some of these other coaching decisions during the game. We talked about the game plan. You give DeAndre Swift 2 touches. You have Dallas Goedert with 1 target. And then some of the play calling. Second quarter, 3rd and 10. They hand it off to Boston Scott. Where's the aggressiveness? And Nick Sirianni was asked after the game and said, oh, well, I would consider that aggressive. How is it aggressive to hand the ball off on 3rd and 10 to Boston Scott? Second quarter, 25 seconds left in the game. Now, at the time when they did this, I'm saying to myself, okay, offense isn't playing well. Let's just get to halftime. There's 25 seconds left on the clock. Patriots kick the ball to the Eagles, and the Eagles run out the clock. 2 timeouts, 25 seconds, and they decide to run out the clock. Reason I don't like that is we have talked about Nick Sirianni, how aggressive he is. Well, that shows your offense. You have zero confidence in them. You need to, if you're going to be aggressive, and I think you need to be appropriately aggressive, because we're going to talk about in a second when I thought Sirianni was not appropriately aggressive. And Mike Tobin weighing in, Hurts was not running like last year. It looked like he was running scared. Well, I don't know if it was necessarily that he was scared, but it was because the guy hasn't been hit in 7 months. I mean, you think about anybody going into there. The guy needs to get hit. He needed to have some experience in the preseason. He needed to get used to getting his body back into game shape, which he wasn't. But you look at now some of these decisions in the fourth quarter. None worse, in my opinion, when we talk about being appropriately aggressive. 2-minute warning hits. Eagles have the ball. 4th and 2. New England's 44. It's been a sloppy game. Your defense has held the Patriots offense to 6 points in the second half. And you decide to go for it on 4th and 2. Why? Why? You look at the risk reward there. Why not punt it deep? Put your defense on the field. They've been playing well and force this New England Patriots team to go 90 yards and score a touchdown. They don't need 3 points. They need 6 points to win this game. Make them go 90 yards. But they decide to go for it on 4th and 2. And the play call, Jalen Hurts comes up to the line of scrimmage, and he was locked in on Devontae Smith and that slant from the time they got out of the huddle. Everybody watching that game, and unfortunately, everybody on the New England Patriots defense knew where he was going with that ball. Unacceptable. It's just really, really bad decisions. I know they won the game. It's just frustrating. And then you look at some of the decisions with the snap counts. We talked a little bit about DeAndre Swift. He only played 19 snaps. Well, another one that surprised me. You went out and you signed Olamide Zaccheaus from Atlanta. The guy had over 40 catches last year, over 500 yards. I thought they were really going to give this guy an opportunity to try to beat out Quez Watkins for that wide receiver 3 position, or at least push Quez a little bit. Quez Watkins gets 79% of the snaps yesterday. Olamide Zaccheaus only played 7 snaps, no targets. I don't like it. You bring in some fresh blood on offense. Things aren't working with what you're doing on offense. Let's get the ball in their hands. Let's get DeAndre Swift on the field. Get Quez Watkins on the field. Let's change it up a little bit. Rashad Penny's not even dressed for this game. I just don't understand some of these offensive coaching decisions, but they better get it right this week. And we're going to talk about the Minnesota Vikings in the third segment here today. But let's go, because I don't want to just harp on the offense here, but let's just look at some of these stats. Eagles only had 17 first downs. On third down, their third down efficiency, 4 out of 13 for 30%. They only had 251 net yards. This is a team who had the third most yards in the league last year, 251 net yards. They had an average yards per play of 4.1, only 97 rushing yards, a 3.9 rushing average per carry. That is just bad. And 4.3 passing yards per attempt. And they were only 1 for 2 in the red zone for 50%. But the reason they win this game, turnovers. New England Patriots have 2. Philadelphia Eagles only have 1. That's going to win more games than it's going to lose you in the NFL. So let's take a look at that defensive side of the ball, because although they caused those 2 turnovers and they score points, big play, turning it into 6 points the other way, it wasn't all peaches and cream on the defensive side of the ball either. Mac Jones. This isn't Patrick Mahomes we're talking about. This isn't Aaron Rodgers. This isn't even Matt Stafford or Jared Goff, in my opinion. I think Jared Goff is a lot better of a quarterback than Mac Jones. Listen to this stat line. Mac Jones, 35 of 54, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns. And guess what? It's the first time in Mac Jones' career that he's thrown for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he does it on opening day against the Philadelphia Eagles. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. And you look at, when we talked about in the opening segment, things we were preaching all summer long, the linebackers, the safeties. Hey, what are we going to do on defense? We lost both of our starting linebackers. TJ Edwards is gone. Played over 94% of the snaps last year. Kazir White's gone. You go to that safety position. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, gone. Marcus Epps, gone. Well, what are the Eagles going to do? They failed us in those positions, and you saw what the New England Patriots were able to do yesterday. They exploited the middle of the field. The middle of the field was open all day long, and Mac Jones took advantage of it all game, throwing for 350 yards. Now, the one positive for this Eagles defense yesterday, and we talked about it a little bit in the opening segment, was our defensive tackles. Jalen Carter is everything we thought he was coming out of Georgia. This guy is unfreaking believable. He was the highest rated player on that Eagles defense. I'm looking for his stat line because I wrote it down, and it is just wild. Jalen Carter, where's he at here? I know he was rated by Pro Football Focus as the best player on the field, and he only played 50% of the defensive snaps. I expect that to go way up. But the guy had a sack, 7 quarterback pressures, led all defensive tackles in the NFL. Not all rookies, all defensive tackles in the NFL on Sunday with 7 quarterback pressures, has 1 tackle for loss, and was just all over the place in those 50% of the defensive snaps. The guy who had the most snaps was Fletcher Cox, 62%. I think you're going to start to see his number drop. Not that he played badly, but he's getting up there. Fletcher Cox also made some big plays in this game. And another guy, we talked about him early, Jordan Davis, getting a half a sack, forcing that fumble on Ezekiel Elliott. That was a big play in this game. And he was just causing pressure, stopping the run, exactly what everyone knew he could do, but also causing pressure on the quarterback. Very excited about these defensive tackles, and let's not forget about Milton Williams. Now, the problem is the other part of our defensive line, our ends, our edge rushers, they could not get to Mac Jones. Now, part of that was the fact that they were probably also rusty. They weren't in game shape. But the play calling by Bill O'Brien, you got to give him credit. They were getting the ball out of Mac Jones's hands fast. They were not going to take long drops and allow these defensive ends to pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. They were throwing short passes like we said. If you follow me on Instagram, I did a video leading up to this week, and a lot of people said this, so this isn't novel on my part, that if the New England Patriots were going to try to exploit this this defense, what they were going to do were short passes to their tight ends. They got 2 good tight ends, Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki, And they were also going to try to take advantage of their running back, Ramondre Stevenson, who also had 60 catches last year out of the backfield. And they really did a nice job of getting the ball in their tight end's hands. And then what else they did, if you notice, they would spread the Philadelphia Eagles defense out. They would go in a trips formation. When they knew it was man coverage, they would cross the wide receivers and they'd have a wide receiver coming across the field, and Mac Jones hit him a couple times in stride, and they had some really big gains. But they took advantage of our weakest spots on that defense: linebacker, safety. And what we need to make up for those weak positions is Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick, Nolan Smith, who we'll talk about in a second, Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett. They have to get after the quarterback. That has to make up for how weak we are on the back end and at our linebacker position. But again, when we're talking about this Philadelphia Eagles coaching staff and some of the decisions they made, Nolan Smith, everybody's so excited about Nolan Smith coming into this season, going to get after the quarterback. He played 7 snaps. 7 snaps. And Mr. just commented, okay, but did they win? What are we really talking about? And I said it coming into the segment, coming into the show early on. A win is a win, and I am happy. But just like this coaching staff can't go into there today and talk to the Eagles and say, hey, we won the game, nothing to worry about. Well, we can't as fans sit back and just say, hey, everything's fine. Because everything wasn't fine. Yeah, they won the game, and I still have confidence in this team. And I still think this team is going to go to the Super Bowl. But they weren't ready for that New England Patriots game, and there's things they need to clean up. And that's what we're here to talk about. What do they need to clean up? But you look at the snap count, 7 snaps for Nolan Smith. And we talked about that safety position. 96% of the defensive snaps went to Justin Evans. That's a guy up until a few weeks ago, I don't think anybody was saying was going to start at the safety position. But Justin Evans is starting next to Reed Blankenship on this Philadelphia Eagles defense. Now, Justin Evans was a guy, I said it earlier, big prospect coming out of Texas A&M. Watch his highlights at Texas A&M. He's the only guy I have ever seen truck Derrick Henry in college. Absolutely destroyed him. Check it out, YouTube it. I also have it on my Instagram. Truck Derrick Henry. Had a great rookie season in Tampa coming out, but then the injury bug got him. So hopefully he's able to get back to the form he was coming out of college. But that's where we're putting all of our hopes, on a guy who's really had some injuries over the last few years. One guy who did play well on special teams was Sidney Brown. We're still hopeful he's going to work his way into that safety position. But it was just some interesting decisions by this coaching staff, some interesting things about who played in this game and who didn't. And really, the Eagles need to get it together, because we're going to talk about in the next segment this upcoming game against the Minnesota Vikings. And I was a little bit surprised. The line came out. The early line came out. And the Minnesota Vikings are a 7.5-point underdog to the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Eagles are 7.5-point favorites going into this game. But we're going to talk about it. There's not going to be Nakobe Dean in this game. We know he's out for a few weeks. No James Bradberry, most likely. He's in the concussion protocol. But later on in the show, I have Dr. Chris Radcliffe, Harvard University, Duke medical-trained orthopedic surgeon, coming on to tell us what can we expect from Nakobe Dean and James Bradberry, and when can they get back on the field. But coming out of the break, we're going to break down a little preview of the Eagles-Vikings on Thursday night. Stay tuned, guys.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
Talking about that special teams unit, you may have missed it when we started the show. That was what I was the most angry about, were those 2 wasted timeouts because our special teams didn't have the right personnel on the field. And I said it in the offseason. I think the Eagles would have made a change at their special teams coordinator with Michael Clay if they didn't lose both their offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, and their defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon. I think you would have seen them make a change at special teams, but I don't think Nick Sirianni wanted to have to replace all 3 coordinators going into this year. We know that the Eagles are the first Super Bowl team, I think the 3rd Super Bowl team since 1994 to have to replace both coordinators coming out of the Super Bowl. The last time was 2004 New England Patriots, and before that was the 1994 San Francisco 49ers. So it is not very often that a Super Bowl team has to replace both coordinators, let alone all 3. I think the Eagles decided to hold on to Michael Clay. But last year, bottom 3 in kickoff returns against, and we saw a big return by the New England Patriots. They were bottom 2 in net punting yards. I thought Sippis punted the ball well, but he did have that one hiccup where I don't know. I think he thought that the punt was going to be blocked. He held on to it too long, had the penalty. They got away with it. But some iffy things there. One of the main reasons they're keeping Sippis on this team is for his ability to hold. And you saw that bad hold on the extra point that Jake Elliott missed as well. So they got to right the ship there. But one of the things they don't have to correct is Jake Elliott. Should be the MVP of that game. He's the reason we won that game. But let's take a look at this week. Thursday night, quick turnaround. And we're going to talk to Dr. Radcliffe in a few minutes about what are we going to do with Nakobe Dean and James Bradberry. Is there any chance that these guys will be back sooner rather than later? Because this week against the Minnesota Vikings is not a good week to not have James Bradberry. But we were going to have him come on later, but I'm being told by my producer that the doc is ready. So if we want to bring Dr. Radcliffe in now, we could bring in Dr. Radcliffe. What's up, Dr. Radcliffe? How you doing, man?
Hi, I'm well. How are you? Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining the show. We are live. We got people in the chat that I'm sure will have some comments for you. But have you ever heard the expression, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room?
Of course, all the time. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
How the hell do you find a room where you're not the smartest person in the room? Harvard University, Duke Medical School. How the hell are you never the smartest person in the room? So, I'm going to try to be able to speak to you, but you're so damn smart. Now, I'm obviously kidding. Dr. Radcliffe is a good guy, good friend of mine. And he's got, what's the name of your medical practice, Dr. Radcliffe?
Spinal Disc Center. So I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I perform primarily spine surgery. I've had the privilege of taking care of the Eagles, being on the sidelines in the past as one of the spine surgeons and one of the team doctors. And now I'm on my own, and I'm running a private practice, kind of focusing on new solutions for back and neck problems.
Where's your office located? Here in New Jersey?
Yeah, in New Jersey, in Cherry Hill, and in Summers Point, and up in Toms River.
Well, I appreciate you making the time. We're going to try to have Dr. Radcliffe come on every Monday night. I was hoping we wouldn't have to talk to you tonight, because I was hoping the Eagles were going to get out of that game without any injuries, but unfortunately that's not the case. The big one everybody's concerned about is the news that Nakobe Dean has a foot injury and is going to be out several weeks but doesn't need surgery. Now, I know doctors don't like to speculate, but I'm going to make you speculate here because I don't think they said what the injury is. Any idea what he could be dealing with?
Yeah, it's got to be a sprain. I talked to a couple of colleagues and did some research. So a sprain is damage to the ligament or the tissue that holds bones together. And in general, there are different degrees of sprains, and different sprains are some are more severe than others. The minor strains are more or less just stretching the ligament out a little bit, and with rest, it usually comes back to normal size. I think the keys are that the coach said today that it looks like it's about a 4-week timeline or so. If it was a fracture, it would be more like a 12-week timeline. And I think the other key, at least that I saw online, was that Nakobe Dean was walking in a boot. Typically, a fracture would be non-weight bearing. So from that, I kind of deduced that this is not a fracture or bony injury per se. It's got to be a soft tissue injury, like a ligament strain or sprain. I saw the video. I couldn't really tell what happened.
Yeah, it was hard to see in the video. And I just know right after the game, the rumors spreading were Liz Frank. So we can rule that out, right, at this point?
Correct. Yeah. So a Liz Frank is a really severe midfoot injury, which can be a really severe sprain, but it's where essentially all the ligaments are destroyed. So Liz Franks need surgery, and Liz Franks are usually non-weight bearing for at least 12 weeks after surgery. So I don't think it's the traditional feared Liz Frank injury.
That's good. So let me ask you now, if you're his treating physician, how do you keep him conditioned to be able to be in game shape when that foot sprain does heal? What can he do?
Yeah, so I mean, he could still do general. I mean, obviously, he can do upper extremity stuff. He can do leg presses and squats and deadlifts and all the. I mean, some of the weight training. He probably would have to do single leg leg press instead of doing like traditional squats. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but I mean, he could still do some strengthening. He could still do cardio. Obviously, depending on the nature of it. I mean, you think aqua therapy might be really good for helping him to stay mobile, stay fit, and not put a ton of weight on the injured ligaments, because the water will obviously lighten the weight a little bit. So I think that's how I would approach it. Is just look, this is a setback, but take it easy. We're going to get back, but just for now, let's just focus on staying strong and fit. I don't think he can do sport drills just yet. I don't think he can do that yet.
And again, I'm going to ask you to speculate, and I apologize, but assuming that it is a sprain to the foot, what are we looking at as best case scenario for a return and worst case scenario for a return to the field?
I think best case scenario is 4 weeks, as Coach Syracuse has said. I think worst case scenario is probably more like 12 weeks or longer, and that would be the scenario where it's not fully healed, and then it gets re-injured after an attempted return to play or a practice injury. So I think that it'll be telling, and it'll be good just to see him walking around the sideline, see how mobile he is, and to see just kind of how he's proceeding with his treatment. I'm sure at this point an MRI is done or going to be done, and the MRI will give really precise information about what ligaments are torn, and there's even degrees of sprain that we can get into.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Eagles schedule as you're talking here, thinking, okay, 4 weeks. So he misses Vikings, Bucks, Commanders, and Rams. But then in 5 weeks, they got the New York Jets, and we're going to see how good they can be tonight with new quarterback Aaron Rodgers, new running back Dalvin Cook, and then the Miami Dolphins the week after. So let's hope Dean can get back on the field. Some people are asking in the comments, who's going to be taken over for Nakobe Dean? And that's a good question because we've been saying it all offseason. The Eagles do not have a lot of linebacker depth here. So as of now, Zach Cunningham, Christian Ellis, do they bring up Nicholas Morrow, who's still on the practice squad? And they did just sign this Rashaan Evans, but I can't imagine he'll be up to speed by Thursday. But let's talk about another injury. And this one's a big one. All-pro cornerback James Bradberry is in the concussion protocol. It's a little bit more along. I mean, whenever you hear concussion, you get concerned because these guys need to make sure they're fully healed before they get back on the field. But really, in this situation, because the Eagles have a quick turnaround Thursday night game, is there any chance that he could get through that concussion protocol before Thursday night?
I really doubt it. It's a five-phase protocol with like kind of the first phase just being like symptom limited activity. Second phase is aerobic exercise, then some football specific exercise. In order to be kind of released from the concussion protocol, you've got to meet those phases, do some non-contact training drills, and then get cleared for full football activity. And there's usually an independent consultant that has to clear you by that time. So I just think that timing wise, he won't have time by Thursday to do that.
Yeah, and that is a big loss because we know that we have Justin Jefferson coming to town, best wide receiver in the NFL. And I think it's probably going to be Josh Jobe, who did step in against the New England Patriots, make that big play at the end of the game. But so you think chances of him playing on Thursday night pretty slim?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he went into the concussion protocol, immediately. So we don't know what the dialogue was or what they were seeing on the sidelines, but he must have been symptomatic for them to kind of put him in. If you remember, he put his head down on the field for a couple minutes. Like I think his bell probably was kind of rung, and he was just trying to get oriented. And so they're, as out of abundance of caution, they're really careful about this. So they don't rush the concussion protocol. And there's so many different phases that are evidence based, but that to make sure that they're safe to exercise, they're safe to do non-contact training, and I just don't see him clearing that by Thursday. So it's hard. It's a short week.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but obviously you want the long-term health of the player is most important. So I'd like to see them not rush him back, but Eagles secondary is going to have their work cut out for him against Justin Jefferson, rookie Jordan Addison, who's a stud out of USC, TJ Hawkinson. So I'm going to break that down in the next segment, guys, so stay tuned. But in the chat, FFE Explorer is asking about Hassan Reddick. He had a torn ligament in his thumb, had surgery. He played on Sunday, so I think he's fine. But they're asking, when will he be back to 100% from that?
So it depends. With all these kind of ligament injuries, they actually take longer and linger more than bone injuries, which is kind of surprising. You would think the bone would be worse. So the general timeline is 6 to 12 weeks. The challenge with the thumb, I mean, it's not like you carry a ton of weight across your thumb, but you really need a lot of control and flexibility in order to function well. So I think that for for the full function, I'm sure we're looking at 12 weeks or more. Just to be able to do basic stuff, and like we said, he played. It may be sooner.
Well, I
And
appreciate
these guys
it.
play with pain.
Yeah, they do. I mean, all these guys, by
Yeah.
the end of the year, they're all banged up. You saw what
Yeah.
Lane Johnson was able to do last year with that
Yeah.
abductor injury, but pretty incredible. We just saw it was Kevin Hart tried to race that former player.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and he's
Got
in
a
a
hamstring
wheelchair.
injury. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's in a wheelchair, and I think Lane Johnson had a similar injury.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show how tough these guys are. But guys following along, this is Dr. Chris Radcliffe from the Spinal Disc Center in New Jersey. Great guy, great doctor. As we said earlier, very well trained. He's going to be joining us every Monday night to talk about injuries. So as much as I love Dr. Radcliffe, I'm hoping we don't have a lot to talk to him about because I want this Eagles team to stay healthy. But Doc, really appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we'll talk soon, my man.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you.
So, guys, we're going to take another break before the next segment, and then we're going to get into breaking down this Week 2 matchup. It's coming quickly Thursday night against Justin Jefferson and the Minnesota Vikings, so don't go away.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Coming on, like I said, I'm hoping we don't have to hear from him too often. Last year, this Philadelphia Eagles team was the healthiest team in the NFL. All 22 opening day starters were able to start in that Super Bowl. And already after week 1, Nakobe Dean's out for a few weeks. And James Bradberry, that was not good stuff to hear with regard to him being able to play on Thursday night. I'm going to break that game down for us in a second, but that would be a big loss against that Minnesota Vikings offense. We do have a 49ers fan in the chat, so I just want to talk a little bit about Jalen Carter, who's replacing Javon Hargrave at defensive tackle for this Philadelphia Eagles team. And Jalen Carter already with a sack, already with 7 quarterback pressures. My prediction going into the season was that Jalen Carter is going to set the Philadelphia Eagles rookie sack record. And guys, if you're in the chat, do any of you know, if you follow me, you probably know, do any of you know in the chat who holds the Philadelphia Eagles rookie record for the most sacks in a season? So I'll let you think about that for a second. But this Minnesota Vikings game coming up, I'll give you the answer in a few minutes, but this Minnesota Vikings game coming up is not going to be easy. Quick turnaround. Minnesota's coming off of a loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield, 20-17. And we talked about why the Philadelphia Eagles won the game against the New England Patriots is the same reason the Minnesota Vikings lost their game, turnovers. They had 3 turnovers against the Tampa Bay Bucs. Outside of those turnovers, Minnesota Vikings played really, really well. Kirk Cousins against that Tampa Bay Bucs defense. And that Tampa Bay Bucs defense isn't bad. They still have some players on that team from the Super Bowl. They still have Devin White, Shaq Barrett, Levante David, Antoine Winfield Jr. Not a bad defense. Kirk Cousins put up 344 yards, 2 touchdowns. But he did have 3 turnovers, 1 interception and 2 fumbles. That was the deciding factor in this game. But does he have weapons on that Vikings offense? Justin Jefferson, 9 catches, 150 yards. Jordan Addison, a rookie out of USC, also on my fantasy team, 4 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown. And this is the guy I'm really worried about. TJ Hawkinson at that tight end position, 8 catches for 35 yards. Probably not going to have James Bradberry in this game. You're not going to have Nakobe Dean at linebacker, although I didn't think Nakobe Dean was playing that well before he got hurt. But you're not going to have Nakobe Dean at linebacker. This Minnesota Vikings team, that offense is really going to try to exploit this Eagles linebackers, safeties, and now secondary. You're going to have Josh Jobe probably starting at that other corner position in place of injured James Bradberry. I expect Darius Slay to travel the field with Justin Jefferson. I don't think you'll see them just put Darius Slay on the left side. You will probably see Darius Slay travel around with Jefferson. He did that last year, had a great game, if you remember, one of the best games that Slay has had for this Eagles team. And he's had some good ones, but that Vikings game may have been the best game he's had in an Eagles uniform. So he'll probably travel around with Justin Jefferson, but that means it's going to come down to Josh Jobe, Avonte Maddox to really try to shut down Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson. And I expect the Vikings, they're going to be able to put up points. This is not going to be the New England Patriots offense. And you look at that New England Patriots offense, if Mac Jones is putting up 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, Kirk Cousins is going to put up some points in this game. I do expect the Vikings to put up points, which means this Philadelphia Eagles offense has to get things right. They have to be in sync in this game. They cannot be as sloppy as they were against the New England Patriots and expect to win this game. I don't think the Minnesota Vikings get held to 20 points in this game. I know they only put up 17 points against the Tampa Bay Bucs, but that was mainly because of 3 turnovers. Like I said, 344 yards throwing. Now, one of the benefits with this Vikings team is there's no longer Dalvin Cook on that team. They have Alexander Madison. He is not Dalvin Cook. Not a bad running back, but he's not Dalvin Cook. So I don't expect them to try to run the ball a lot against this Eagles defense. And we did see that this Eagles defense's strength is probably going to be stopping the run. Last year, the Philadelphia Eagles had the best passing defense in the NFL. They certainly didn't have it week 1. I don't expect them to have a very strong passing defense this week without James Bradberry and with Reed Blankenship, Justin Evans sitting back there at safety. And I know a lot of people are saying, hey, Kirk Cousins doesn't play well in prime time. There's some truth to that. There is some truth to that. You got to look up the stats. It's not as bad as everyone says it is. He's not great, but he's also had some big games in prime time. I hate to admit it, but if anybody watched that quarterback documentary on Netflix, it actually made me like Kirk Cousins a lot. He seems to be a really nice guy. I'm not going to be rooting for him this week, but I did really start to like him after watching that quarterback documentary. He seems like a just real good dude, good family man, and guy that you could really root for. But I do expect them to put up some points. The issue is this Vikings defense. They had one of the worst defenses in the league last year. They gave up the second most yards in the NFL last year. They gave up the second most passing yards in the NFL last year. So this could be a prime opportunity for Jalen Hurts and this Philadelphia Eagles offense to try to right the ship and put up a lot of points this week. But if you look at some of the changes that this Vikings defense made in the offseason, they may be a lot better. I mean, they brought in Brian Flores, who is their new defensive coordinator. Remember, he was a coach 11 years with the New England Patriots. So I do expect him to bring over some of the concepts that you saw Bill Belichick using against our offense this week with that soft zone, a lot of dime packages with a lot of corners and secondary players on the field. I do expect them to do that. But they also brought in some players. In addition to bringing in Brian Flores at the defensive coordinator position, they brought in Dean Lowry, defensive end, started 12 games for Green Bay last year. They also brought in outside linebacker Marcus Davenport. He was a first-round pick of the New Orleans Saints in 2018. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option. So the Minnesota Vikings signed him to a one-year, $13 million deal. And they also brought in cornerback Byron Murphy. All three of those guys are starters for this Vikings team. They still have Harrison Smith at safety. He's been in the league for a long time. And Jordan Hicks at linebacker. A lot of Eagles fans remember Jordan Hicks. I thought he was a very good linebacker, couldn't really stay healthy. He's getting up there, but he's still playing for this Vikings team. But they did a really nice job against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They didn't give up a lot of points, only 20 points. They held Baker Mayfield to 173 yards. And Rachaad White, the running back for the Bucs, only had 39 yards on the ground, 2.29 yards per carry. And they held Mike Evans. Very difficult to hold Mike Evans in check. Had a decent game, 6 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown on 10 targets. But not too bad for that Minnesota Vikings defense. So I don't think this is going to be an easy game by any means for that Philadelphia Eagles defense. And you look at who's going to be on the field. If I'm the Minnesota Vikings and I'm watching the tape from the New England Patriots game, I am all over the middle of that field. I am going to exploit the middle of that field all day long until the Eagles show that they can stop it. I'm going to have TJ Hawkinson just catching tons of balls. If you have TJ Hawkinson on your fantasy team, I think he's probably a guy to get in your lineup this week. I expect him to have a lot of catches, a lot of targets in this game. The problem's going to be is Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison on the outside. And how are they going to do? What are they going to do? The Vikings aren't going to probably just line them up on the outside. They're going to have Justin Jefferson all over the field, inside, outside, motion. What they're going to try to do is set up formations where Darius Slay loses Justin Jefferson somehow. Hopefully Slay's able to stay with him all game, but there's a reason why Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL and probably went number 1 or number 2 in every single one of your fantasy football leagues. This guy is an absolute beast. Still hurts that we could have had him on the Eagles, but absolute beast. So I'm a little bit concerned at what this Philadelphia Eagles defense is going to be able to do in that secondary, safeties, linebackers. But what's going to have to carry the day for this Eagles team, and it just didn't happen in week 1 against the Patriots, our defensive line. Not the interior. I thought our interior players played really well. We talked about Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Milton Williams and even Fletcher Cox playing really well. Our defensive ends have to get after Kirk Cousins. If we give him enough time to drop back and find Addison and Jefferson, it's going to be a long day for this Philadelphia Eagles defense. So they need to do things to try to generate pressure. Now, one of the things we didn't talk about earlier in the show was new defensive coordinator Sean Desai. And I thought Sean Desai did a nice job of mixing some things up. You saw him definitely bring more pressure than what we've seen Jonathan Gannon bring. He did bring Christian Ellis on a play, Nakobe Dean on a couple plays, but you're not going to see a ton of pressure outside of your front four in a Sean Desai defense. We know he's still of that Vic Fangio mindset, that bend but don't break, don't get beat with the big play. So I would not expect the Eagles to bring a lot of pressure outside of their front four, but that's why it's going to be so important for your big players, your big name players, Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, and rookie Nolan Smith to get after the quarterback. And hopefully our defensive tackles can generate the same type of interior pressure that we saw Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis generating in the New England Patriots game. I talked to you guys earlier, said, hey, Jalen Carter is going to set the record for the most sacks by a rookie in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history. I asked the chat if anybody knew who it was. I saw some Reggie Whites thrown in. I saw some Brian Dawkins thrown in. It was Corey Simon, 9.5 sacks back in 2000. Pretty impressive number for Corey Simon, 9.5 sacks. Do you think Jalen Carter can pass Corey Simon for the most sacks ever by a rookie in Philadelphia Eagles history? I think he can. 9.5 sacks. He'll have 17 games to do it. He already has one. I think he's going to be able to do it. But we need our defensive tackles to have a big game. We need our defensive ends to have a big game because in addition to James Bradberry not being there, who is playing linebacker for this team on Thursday night? Zach Cunningham. I didn't think he looked great. I did not think he looked great. I don't think he looked horrible, but I think he looked like a guy who was still available in August, not on an NFL football team. That's what he looked like. He's an average linebacker. He could fill in, but he's going to have to be the guy this week. Him, Christian Ellis, and I am assuming they're going to call up Nicholas Morrow from the practice squad. If you guys remember, Nicholas Morrow, he played for the Chicago Bears last year, started all 17 games, had a ton of tackles, played in every defensive snap for the Chicago Bears. But a lot of those tackles were 5-6 yards down the field. So that Chicago Bears defense wasn't very good, but they'll probably call Nicholas Morrow up. I don't think the new linebacker they just signed is going to play on Thursday, Rashaan Evans from the Atlanta Falcons. Well, he was on the Titans practice squad, but he played for the Atlanta Falcons last year. I don't think they'll have time to get him up to speed, but we will see what happens there. But you're going to have to see your defensive line win this game. 2 sacks isn't going to cut it. You need to put a lot of pressure on Kirk Cousins. That was the exact formula that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did, and they caused some turnovers. Antoine Winfield, safety blitz, hit Cousins in that game, caused a fumble and recovered the fumble. Big play. They also had another fumble of Cousins, and they got him pressure, forcing him to make a bad throw and pick by I don't know who got the interceptions for Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but that's how you're going to have to win this game. And on the offensive side of the ball, Brian Johnson needs a better game plan. I'd be shocked if you don't see DeAndre Swift get the ball and get the ball early. Nick Sirianni did not seem happy after the game that he only had 1 carry and 1 reception. So I don't know how that happens. You're the head coach of this football team. You want DeAndre Swift to get the ball. You make sure he gets the ball, but he did not seem happy after this game. So I do expect the Philadelphia Eagles offense to be a lot better. I do expect their game plan to be a lot better. And another guy that they have to get involved, and not only because he's on my fantasy team, is Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. I still think he's going to put up over 1,000 yards this season. I still think he is that good. The Philadelphia Eagles, if they can get their stuff together, I almost cursed there, but if they can get their stuff together, they could have 3 players on this team with over 1,000 yards receiving in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. But you got to get Dallas Goedert involved in this game. If we know anything about Jalen Hurts, is that guy was probably at the NovaCare complex as soon as they got back from New England, watching film, trying to figure out ways to get better, because he knows, just like we know, that he didn't have a good game. Jalen Hurts knows he didn't have a good game, and I expect him to bounce back. What did we see out of Jalen Hurts last year whenever he faced any sort of adversity? The guy bounces back. You look at that Super Bowl. He has the bad fumble. What does he do? Next drive, drives his team right down the field, touchdown. Eagles go down by 8 in the Super Bowl. What does Jalen Hurts do? Takes the ball right down the field, touchdown and 2-point conversion to tie the game. So I expect Jalen Hurts to have a huge week this week against the Minnesota Vikings defense. Brian Flores, like I said, you know what he's probably going to come out with. He saw how successful the New England Patriots were in those dime packages, playing soft zone. Now it's up to Nick Sirianni, Brian Johnson, and Jalen Hurts to figure out how to beat it. Because if you can't figure out a way to beat that soft zone and those dime packages, well, guess what? Every single team in the NFL is going to be putting those defenses out against the Philadelphia Eagles all season long. So this Philadelphia Eagles offense better figure out a way to do it. I also expect, in addition to Jalen Hurts having a better game, I expect that offensive line that's supposed to be the best offensive line in the NFL. You know, Coach Stoutland was probably on them already and going to be on them tomorrow too about the way they played in that game. Very uncharacteristic. Lane Johnson, 6 pressures. Jordan Mailata giving up 4 pressures. But what's even more surprising was their inability to run block. They just couldn't run the football. So I do expect not only is their offensive line going to be better this week in the passing game, I expect their offensive line to be better in the running game. And I expect you to see DeAndre Swift get a lot more touches, as well as Dallas Goedert. I'm predicting Philadelphia Eagles win this game to go 2-0. I'm hopeful that everything we saw against the New England Patriots, all that rust that we saw, is done and out the window. And this is the beautiful part. As angry as I've been and as frustrated as I've been, in a couple of weeks, when we look back, all we're going to remember is the Philadelphia Eagles were 1-0 after week 1. And that's the most important thing. So, guys, we're going to take one more break. But before we do, I just wanted to thank our sponsor for the show, the Garden Medical Spa. So they have locations all over New Jersey. Their motto, no fluff, just results. Check it out, the Garden Medical Spa. Great place, great people, great staff. So check them out, thegardenmedicalspa.com. We're going to come back for one final segment, and then we'll get you right into Monday Night Football, Buffalo Bills, New York Jets. We'll talk a little bit about that too. Stay tuned.
There is a reason why the Garden Medical Spa, with 4 locations in New Jersey, has arguably the best customer reviews in America for a boutique medical spa. At the Garden Medical Spa, there is no fluff, just results. For the best in Botox, chemical peels, dermal fillers, hydrofacials, laser hair removal, and so much more, please visit thegardenmedspa.com. Book an appointment now in Voorhees, Sewell, Collingswood, or Northfield. Thegardenmedspa.com. No fluff, just results.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
So, guys, this final segment will be on for a few more minutes. I really appreciate all the support. I think this was a great first show. Just a reminder, I will be streaming live here on the JAKIB Sports Network every single Monday night from 6:30 to 8 o'clock, all Philadelphia Eagles season long. But if you want more content, I do post daily content on all the social media channels: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter. If you want to listen to the audio, check us out on all your podcast platforms. We're going to upload this to the podcast after. So, guys, if you are only listening to the audio, be sure to tune in to one of the live shows on Monday night. It's really nice. You guys can engage, comment. I really like to see what you have to say so I could respond and do all those things. But, guys, everyone who was here for the show, this was awesome. I really appreciate it. But let's talk a little bit about this Buffalo Bills New York Jets game tonight in New York. I don't know about anybody else, but I am so sick of seeing this New York Jets team and so sick of seeing Robert Saleh, head coach. He's being voted on as, oh, this guy's going to win Coach of the Year this year. I think this Jets team is not going to be as successful as a lot of people think they are going to be. It is not easy. We saw it here in Philadelphia during the Dream Team season. When you bring in all of these players from the outside, it is not easy to gel immediately and try to play well. Now, the one thing the Jets do have going for them is they do have a good defense. Robert Saleh is a very good defensive coach. We saw what he was able to do when he was with the San Francisco 49ers. But tonight, I expect all the hype around the New York Jets. Oh, yeah, thanks, Jason. Appreciate it. All the sites around the New York, all the talk about the New York Jets and how good they're going to be and Super Bowl contenders and Aaron Rodgers and all that. Well, let's not forget about the Buffalo Bills. And I think the Buffalo Bills have a lot to prove this season, especially Josh Allen. He has not played great. Last season was not a great year for them. Sean McDermott, their coach, I think he may be running out of opportunities where they're going to keep giving him chances to get this team over the hump and to a Super Bowl. I expect the Buffalo Bills to win this game. Buffalo's favored by 2.5 points going into New York. I think you're going to see a high-scoring game, which we haven't seen a lot of in the NFL so far this week one. A lot of games hitting the unders. I think the Buffalo Bills New York Jets game is going to be high-scoring. I expect the Buffalo Bills to pull it out in the end. And I want to see Robert Saleh's face on the sidelines after they lose this game, because I've been pretty annoyed just seeing all the publicity and hype that they're giving this New York Jets team. But guys, really appreciate it. The next time we come will be Thursday night. Well, there's shows daily on the JAKIB Sports Network, so be sure to check it out. Birds 365, John McMullen and Jody Mack, great show. I've been a guest on that show. Sports Take with Derek Gunn, Robert Ellis, great show. Been on that show as well. And in the mornings, check out the Farzy Show. Mark Farzetta, great guy. And on Thursday night, the JAKIB Sports pregame show is aired live from the Ocean Casino with Mark Farzetta, Seth Joyner, Derek Gunn. I may or may not be making an appearance there. I also co-host the halftime show with Mark Farzetta live from the Ocean Casino. And then we go right into the postgame show with Mike Missinelli, Derek Gunn, Seth Joyner, and Kayla Santiago. So be sure to check out the JAKIB Sports Network. We'll be streaming live from Ocean Casino every pregame, halftime, and postgame. And if you're down in Atlantic City, stop by the Ocean Casino. We have the set up right outside the sports book. It's beautiful down there. You got the gallery. They got the TVs everywhere. You can place your live bets. It's a lot of fun. Stop by the set, say hello. Love to meet all of you guys. But I really, really appreciate the support. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. Like I said, follow us on all your favorite social media channels. We're going to be bringing content every single day. Thank you again to our sponsor, the Garden Medical Spa. Great place. And as always, go Birds.
There is a reason why the Garden Medical Spa, with 4 locations in New Jersey, has arguably the best customer reviews in America for a boutique medical spa. At the Garden Medical Spa, there is no fluff, just results. For the best in Botox, chemical peels, dermal fillers, hydrofacials, laser hair removal, and so much more, please visit thegardenmedspa.com. Book an appointment now in Voorhees, Sewell, Collingswood, or Northfield. Thegardenmedspa.com. No fluff, just results.